You may be thinking this, or maybe you've said even out loud to her, stop being so sensitive, or what's wrong now? Find yourself even thinking that. This has probably happened many times where you don't understand what's going on with her. And maybe she said something like, well, you don't listen to me. You don't care about me. So for the men that are here live, do us a favor, punch a 1 into the chat if you've thought these things. Stop being so sensitive, or maybe you've said out loud, what's wrong now? Why are you so sensitive? Don't be so sensitive. Punch a 1 into the chat if you've said that, if you've thought that, or if she said, you don't care about me, you don't listen, right? And you don't know what she means. You can't read the French that she's trying to express to you. And you can't, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So you don't understand Venus language. Awesome. We're going to speak today. I'll go through some teaching very quickly first on how to connect with your highly sensitive wife. This is a teaching that I did in the most recent live tribe call. So if you're watching this and you want a longer discussion about this with me and the men in the live tribe call, check that out on YouTube. Otherwise, I'm going to do this here a little faster way, quicker way with Cynthia. So of course, Cynthia's here for the C-Note show for her feminine and professional perspective. We're here to teach you how to love and lead in relationship, the art of love, the art of relationship, to avoid mistakes and to offer safety and inspiration in sexual leadership. Cynthia and I teach these 3 phases. Number 1, stop doing unattractive things. Number 2, be more attractive, basically. And number 3, ask for what you want in a relationship. And each of these phases has specific work, very individual, specific identified work that we walk you through. And this has to do with a question from a man that emailed me before today's call. And so I'll refer back to this. But number 1, stop doing unattractive things. Number 2, grow your understanding, your ability to be grounded, attractive, high value within your own mind first, and then around women. And 3, ask for what you want. And how to do all these 3 phases, of course, is what we teach in detail in our one-on-one coaching in our groups. If you're curious about those things, certainly reach out to us. Or if you're watching this video on YouTube, there's links down below for our free stuff, our website, so check that out. So I'll go quickly through the teaching here. What does highly sensitive mean? Highly sensitive person, or an HSP, as you may have seen, is when a person is deeply sensitive to certain physical, emotional, or social situations. More so than average, you might say, even where textures on their skin or emotions that they're having, the woman in your life may be having those emotions in an incredibly deeper way than you can even realize. And so we'll talk more about that as we go along. I won't read this. You can just Google highly sensitive person and read more details on that if you like, but it's what you might expect. Okay, so here's more of the core of the teaching, the stoplight colors approach. This is my approach that I have started teaching more recently. It's a basic way to think about conversation with her so that this can help immediately, like overnight. You can use the stoplight colors approach to stop shooting yourself in the foot at the very least, and to grow your feeling of control in the situation and your feeling of attractiveness between the two of you, like you're not shooting yourself, like catching your balls in the zipper of your pajamas all the time. That's what I want to help you stop doing. So stoplight colors approach to conversation. We're going to do this fast. So imagine that you come up to an intersection and you see all of these stoplights at once. Okay, they're all these colors are on at once. Well, what if you've never been there before? If it's foreign to you, this situation, this spot, what would you do? Well, you'd probably be confused. You'd be looking around. You might feel a little panicky or fear. Someone behind you starting to honk. You don't know what to do. So that's what's starting to happen in conversation with a highly sensitive woman, is neither of you really know what to do or how to go forward. And all of these signs, all these lights are happening at the same time. Stop, go, what's happening, fear, hurt, shame. I want to move forward into joy. All these things are happening at the same time in a conversation. And I want to help you not do that. You don't want to stack. So don't stack multiple things within the same conversation. And I'll teach you very quickly what that means right now. So the green light, if your approach in that moment is to praise her with an open heart, to have high regard for her, to praise something she's done in the world, or to praise something you like that she did a week ago, or something that she has done with the children yesterday, praising her in the world. If you're doing that, keep that the focus of the conversation. If there's hurt within the conversation, she's sharing a hurt with you, you might simply breathe and empathize with her, okay? And if you feel something needs to logically be decided, then you're now in a logical conversation. But imagine your woman coming to you And she tells you a story of reaching that intersection with all the different stoplights. And she tells you that she was anxious and she had all this fear and people were honking, and she's telling you the story. Okay. So you want to decide which way you want to go with this conversation and to not stack these three different energies into that same conversation. Definitely not stacking them back to back. Like praising her and then empathizing with her and then trying to have a logical discussion. That you don't want to stack those things together. It might be simply breathing and empathizing. So the yellow light is when she's sharing something that's painful for her, hurt, confusion, anger. The green light is when you want to praise something that she's done. Okay. Not at the same time as when she's sharing a hurt necessarily. Even if she shares a hurt, and then tomorrow you want to praise her for opening to you about that hurt, excellent. But don't do these at the same time. And if you have to have a logical discussion, which is very rare in relationship, or it should be actually, if you need to decide, okay, paying the taxes, something happened with the child, there, financial discussion, something that needs to be a logical, the scheduling for you and the kids, that's a logical discussion. So don't try to stack praise within that logical discussion. Don't try to empathize and be emotional in that space with her. You're simply then having a logical discussion. The point is, when you go into any one moment, we often try to, oh my God, something's wrong, let me fix it. Or, oh my God, something's wrong, let me try to just throw the kitchen sink, everything that I've learned at it at one time. Like, hey, I see that you're in pain. What does it feel like in your body? And you've read that somewhere. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you even talking about in my body? I'm telling you a story. Oh, well, thank you so much. And well, next time you go to that intersection, what you really want to do is XYZ mansplain. Even you breathing in, me faking this conversation is like, where are we going?
That's a lot.
Yeah, where are we going with this? Okay, just 30 more seconds here. Often a woman feels like this is all you do, that you only light up. And there's a picture of a man in this red light. I picked this in particular purposefully, right? That all you do is mansplain. All you do is logical discussions. And so she thinks you don't listen, you don't care about me. Or you try to sandwich logic in with empathizing, or you try to sandwich, hey, that was great that you did that yesterday, but you didn't, you were late to pick up the kids today and they're really mad. Or, hey, why were you late? And all of a sudden it goes into smashing these things together, and she feels like you don't care. She feels like you don't listen. So real quick, this is a man wrote in about this. I'll ask Cynthia about this situation, and then let's bounce to you guys here. And I certainly want to hear your feedback, and we'll get into connecting with you and hearing your stories now. So this man wrote, his wife and he are in the third month of she doesn't have any intimacy for me conversation. So third month of she's not interested in intimacy with me right now. Last night, he says, we were meeting for dinner, and she said she was going to have a drink with a girlfriend from work first, and if I could meet them around 7:00. When I got there, she was not wearing her wedding ring, and my stomach dropped. I went to give her a kiss that we share daily when we each see each other, but in front of her friend, she turned her cheek. I held it together while we sat there and told her we need to discuss the ring thing when she gets home. Okay, he's already starting to stack, right? Like we need to discuss this ring thing when you get home. He goes on, she says I'm overreacting about the ring and that it's only a ring. So this starts to smack of gaslighting, which I hate that word, but I want to ask Cynthia about this too. A woman's point of view when she says, you're overreacting about the ring. It's only a ring. Not my vision. And I told her that I was disappointed and that it's time for me to move into the spare room. I want to continue to show her I care for her and will continue to wear my ring, but find it hard to do as she has not put hers back on. Based on today's discussion, so this was the live tribe call, I feel as if I'm violating phase number 1 below. So he has a hunch he's doing something unattractive, and he's asking me about that. Here's his question. I feel like I should try to invite myself back into our bedroom, but I also feel like if I do, I'm compromising my boundary about how I feel about wearing our rings while we're a married couple. Stuck on the discussion. Okay, there's like 3 different pieces of this question that we could talk about that are a little off base. But Cynthia, let's start with the heart of the question. So did I make a mistake? Was that unattractive to her, how he handled the situation? And now he wants to invite himself back in the room. So let's do it in the 2 pieces. What are you feeling from, okay, he went and met them as she asked, she wasn't wearing a ring, went to kiss her, she turned the cheek. We talk about this when we get home. You're overreacting about the ring thing. He says he's disappointed, and now it's time for him to move into the spare room. but he wants to continue to show her he cares, but hard to find that it's hard to do that because she doesn't have a ring on. Let's start there, please. What are your impressions to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's this like big body of a sentence of her saying you're overreacting about the ring. Before that, something that hit me was, this statement. We're going to talk about this when we get home, which makes so much sense. And yet I felt like there's a punitive nature to it. And I automatically feel in my body like kind of like a little girl that's being shamed. And whether or not she deserves to be shamed, I would see how that would put her on her back foot. And then if that makes her feel really crappy, then whatever her mechanism is to stop feeling crappy about herself and try to make you feel crappy instead, or make it your fault, is going to come out. And in this case, it's almost she's taking the logical masculine role of trying to create a frame around this is not a big deal, poo-pooing it. And I just imagine for this man that felt horrible for him, and yet she's kind of taken the reins on the situation, and now it really feels like she's in control with everything, the ring, the room, and it doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel amazing even in my own body as a woman, seeing how she's kind of wielding all the power.
Yeah. Well, and as a man, I would be thinking, well, go ahead and give me your engagement ring and your wedding ring then. I'm going to go ahead and, sell them for as much money as I can, and I'll just buy you a blank band then. That's what the like, well, fuck you then, like, comes to my mind. Don't say that. Don't do that. Okay. But that's part of when she comes into a masculine mode and we're still in our masculinity, we're not kowtowing, right? But we're still within our own self. Now it's kind of man to man.
Yeah.
And challenges and logical discussions mean, well, now we're in competition.
And she's, in my humble opinion, she's winning.
What is winning? He left the bedroom, you mean? Like
yeah, and I feel like if I try to feel into her body, I bet she's feeling a sense of power in herself, that she now has the power to do these things no matter what he wants. And that's really going to feed into this story, whatever she's created out about him, and she's not going to want to let that feeling of power go, because on the other side of it, she then has to feel maybe her own insecurities and her own pain and her own frustration.
Sure. Yeah. Another way I might say that is it takes two to fight. So if she's being in this masculine mode, getting yourself all riled up in a masculine mode, or trying to make a decision of where you're going to sleep and all this, it gets conflated, right? So within your own self, you have more practice being a masculine person. First of all, it's like, who's the adult in the room? And chasing her is not going to help. So let's actually step forward. It's only a ring thing. We could certainly talk about that. What she's saying in this moment is that she doesn't care about the relationship. That right now she doesn't want to feel the responsibility of relationship. She wants to basically feel single. Not that so let me ask you about this. Men talk about this quite a lot. We see this over and over, that when a woman wants space, when she wants separation, it's akin to she wants to feel single.
Yeah.
That's feels terrifying. And, a guy wants to like stop that. What can I do to stop that? What do you think a guy can do, or how should he approach that situation? The ring, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, here's not the perfectly framed answer of what to do, but what I can tie this to is this topic today of highly sensitive. And when a woman wants to act single without really necessarily being single, as in, okay, yes, you can sell my rings, she's looking for freedom and relief from a tremendous emotional load of energy that she feels is cloaked around her, pulling her down and affecting even her own sense of what she wants. And so a lot of time women will want to act single because they are making an energetic tie in their mind, in their body, in their perception of your emotion, her emotion, and the space between you. And with that tie, there comes a relief. She's not carrying this load, or we might call it responsibility. And it gives her a momentary dopamine or euphoria of like, I'm free of this. Like, I can do whatever I want. I'm not going to be swayed by what he wants. And that feels empowering for her, especially if she is pretty sensitive and her whole being has kind of followed along the curves of relationship. This is a differentiating force for her that, at least in the moment, feels pretty good. It actually gives her masculine a feeling of freedom.
Yeah, that's incredibly well said. So fighting with her about that would make her feel what? Like more entrenched about it? Pushing, cajoling, would what?
Yeah, I mean, it would make her feel righteous that she has this belief that she'll be free if she turns away and cuts ties with you. And then you also might get feedback from her that you're being pushy, because if we talked about you've had more practice at masculine, so your masculine's always going to win and be better at masculinizing than hers, and so it will feel pushy to her, and then she's going to kind of choose into more subversive tactics to again push you away and not feel, just really wanting to avoid feeling the realness of what's there in deference, so she can feel lighter emotions, easier emotions to feel.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go from there. Come on in, please.
Hey guys, that's Cynthia, that's so well said. I'm so taken by the masculinity and the feminine. So looking at this role, which I think really matches me, because right now I did separate, I left, I had no choice because it was such a bombardment of an argument, and her masculinity just increased that the only thing I could do was just say fine and leave to gain my masculinity back, because I needed some leverage. I had none. So it was as if, she took all the masculinity. And now, though, I feel like I have leverage because I've gotten that space away from her. The only move that I could have done was to leave. Otherwise, I would have fought and it wouldn't have gotten nowhere, because she just would have threw everything at me, and she pretty much did. So my only option was to leave. And it's been 4 weeks with no word at all. I mean, again, her masculinity is still there. So I'm waiting, for her to respond and then go to what Jeff said with sit in my lap. I'll give you this one time to go and talk about it to see where that would go. But anyway, I've had to get my masculinity back. So here's my question. How does a man, a husband, take back the masculinity when or that leverage when his wife is increasing in the power? Like this, this scenario here where she took the ring off and turned the cheek. Honestly, that would embarrass me if I was in that situation, and I would have left, because that was a kick in the stomach and blindsided by the wife. To turn her cheek in front of other people, that would have been it. I would have said, I wouldn't have fought, but I would have left, because there's got to be some point where in retreat, you got to get your masculinity back. And as you two specifically talk about, Jeff talks about the masculine and then Cynthia, the feminine, then right now, when I left, my wife had that masculine power, which whatever the reason was that we talked about that, but I had to go. There was no choice. Otherwise, I would have been crushed to a pulp, out of a bombardment of insults and everything else. So I left. And now I feel like through, going over the scenarios in my mind, calming down, I feel like I'm gaining my leverage back.
Yeah. So you've said the word leverage like 6 times. And so what do you mean by leverage?
I guess the masculinity side, to turn that balance back to normal, where, the woman, like Cynthia says, the feminine looks to the masculine and feels that sense of security. That's what I mean. I felt like I've lost that from that argument, and I want to get that back. So can I get that balance back through getting my masculinity back? Well, I need to reset that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm happy to bounce over to Cynthia in a second. There's a couple of concepts there. So she can't take your masculinity, like whether she's acting more masculine or more feminine. that doesn't mean it retracts from you. At least
Right.
it should not. That's the goal. And so there's other work. Again, the first phase of this is internal on your own self. So I'm just going to skip over that into what you're asking, which is really phase 3. How do I invite her back into relationship? So we're skipping phase 1 and phase 2. So if you feel like she can steal your masculinity or it somehow drains you as a man, that's a non-starter. That's tough. So tell us about that. Tell me about that first.
Well, I don't think it's stealing it. It never has. I think her gaining hers, not stealing from my water bucket. She's not taking mine. She's just gaining in power and masculinity and getting to a point where it's two masculinities in the same room, and it's your wife that's trying to gain more masculinity over you. She's not taking mine, she's gaining hers.
Sure.
So in order to sit there and go Godzilla to Godzilla, I left.
No, yeah, I think you did the right thing. So if I may jump in again, I think you did the right thing as far as, you're not wanting to King Kong versus Godzilla. You're not interested in that.
No.
Okay. But these words are very important. And so you said she's growing in masculinity and therefore growing in power. Well, a woman can be very powerful in her feminine too. And I think you'd agree with me. I'm picking apart some words because they're really important, right? Leverage usually means some kind of manipulation, like you're trying to get something on the other person. Or what do you mean by leverage? Like, I want to manipulate her into getting back together with me?
No.
That's not what you mean.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm not a manipulator. I would never do that. In fact, my wife would definitely know that right away. It's not my.
I didn't think that's what you meant. So say it one more time.
I meant balance. I guess the leverage I meant was putting us back to the balance of femininity and masculinity coming together in the way that we are, or could be, or have been, where the love is growing there. I mean,
there we go. That's beautifully said.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Very nice. Yeah, beautifully said. So Cynthia, in his spot, what's your initial impression? It's been 4 weeks. She hasn't reached out. She basically like screamed, and there was probably a screaming argument. It sounds like is that right?
From her side. Yeah, from my son came out and even told her to stop. What are you yelling at Doug for? It was totally one-sided, and I let it roll. At one time, the bloke from New Zealand, I believe, he said that when they start going, there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop it. And that's exactly where I was, unless to leave. That was my exit.
Sure. So if I may press pause on you, and I'll go over to Cynthia. Thank you. So I don't want to pick this apart too much, and we'll talk about this more another time. That wasn't your only choice to leave. If she's ranting and raving, your only choice is not to leave. You have more choices than that. That's a topic for a completely other time. But in this spot, it's 4 weeks. She hasn't reached back out. He would love to have a balance within masculine and feminine, have a healthy relationship growing again. What do you think is the first thing that needs to happen? What does he need to see from her for her to show any indication she's even interested in being more feminine with him or building anything in a relationship?
Yeah, and I actually really connected with your word leverage, because I think women intuitively try to work with a lot with leverage. So let's say she's moving away from leverage, and that would look like a reaching out, some sort of opening text, or if you happen to see her, there's kind of a curiosity or a wondering in her face. Right now, it reminds me of her, like she's just digging in the dirt as deep as she can to get, below the surface with all the leverage that she can. And
so what do you mean by leverage?
Well, what was hitting me was, to me, and in like my feminine awareness, leverage is kind of one person's here or one person's here. And I think women can get really in tune to that. And that's how they can build a feeling of identity, or especially safety, if they've got the upper hand. I still don't have good words for is your masculinity is so much broader and bigger and taller and more rooted than any games of who's got the upper hand. It reminds me always that anytime I visit, redwood forest and the enormity of those trees that I can't even comprehend, let alone wrap my arms around, the wisdom, the heart, the strength from ground to sky, I would never be able to compete with that. Like, no matter how hard I tried to dig my own hole around that. And that's what it was hitting me in your wondering about your wife is you've got so much more energetic power, broadness, wisdom, rootedness than she could ever have. And when I see sacred masculine in its fullest, it's very, very still and calm and at home in itself. And to me, that's the energy that can pull a woman out of games, out of her own fear, and into even a humbleness and respect for what you bring that has nothing to do with her energetic games.
So he's not going to play into those games. He has this perspective of being a redwood, that she's going through something, right? And to not play into the dynamic, basically. What else would you say about that?
Yeah, even shifting your own energy away from that dynamic into self without, I mean, redwood trees, they're just there. They are not concerned that you're walking by or gawking at them. Even that energetic shift can change how a wife responds. And again, if we're talking about highly sensitive, these energetic things, they really matter and can sometimes be more powerful than the perfect words or the perfect actions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you would, I want to bounce over to another man, and certainly there's more to talk about with you here. And if you'd like to talk with Cynthia or myself privately, we can certainly do that. So reach out to us. Okay. Let's take a look at the chat. What do you mean by free all of this, the relationship? Come on in for a minute.
Yeah, it was just when Cynthia was saying like that she was not wearing the ring, and Cynthia mentioned that she wanted to feel free of this. What did she mean by that?
Yeah. What is the relationship responsibility that she doesn't want to feel, relationship weight that she doesn't want to feel right now?
Yeah, I think women are they're very, even if they pretend to not be, or they've purposely turned away from you, they're very aware what you're wanting, the energy that you're carrying, and her whole biology is set up to want to align with you. And unless she really practices that she can align with you and then also be in her own flow and come back and forth, she will feel like that responsibility to be in relationship, to make sure everyone's happy, to unknowingly feel everything that's going on. That will feel like responsibility, and unfortunately can feel like burden at times. And so she sometimes wants to drop it all like a dirty laundry basket and head off to the hills, as if there's this euphoric, I'll never have to worry about anyone's feelings ever again, let alone feel my own. Women can get entrapped into the belief that that's their only way to feel like they don't have to hold anything or respond to anything. And that's part of being a woman in a woman's body, is you are a responder, even though it can feel for her like, oh, this is a lot and I don't have any skills to work with this in a feminine, loving, connected way in partnership.
Yeah, it's well said. How's that come across?
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, it's just in a way, kind of just get that weight off the emotional weight, I guess, that the relationship might be causing. So it's like a reminder, right? Kind of that she's feeling, kind of whenever she sees that. It's like a reminder of like, oh, is that pretty much what you're trying? It's like a weight off, you know?
Yeah, it is. Or it even may be that she sees you, and then deep beneath the layers of anger, criticism, or blame, she feels, I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed, I feel like a failure. Maybe even not about the marriage. Maybe this goes back to she's 8 years old and projecting that out on this is someone else is the reason I'm having to feel this. And it's like a spiritual bypass. What can I do to not have to feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Put into the chat, what is she afraid of? Where is the fear? And what is she defending against by putting on the masculine? Come on in. Want to elaborate more on your question, please? Yeah.
Yeah, so I share the same thing. My wife's stress level is very high. Her cognitive bias is to kind of pull out the challenges and the stresses of the day, and those will kind of take a monopoly in her head. And then she's very good at pursuing being the kind of mom that she be. And if you just back off of it and look at it from 10,000 feet, and you're not plugged in as a husband wanting any kind of wifely energy out of her, you can really see that that's 110% being a mom, taking care of a house and doing the best she can do with what she's got. I think it's a lot easier for a woman to say, you know, you're an adult and you're mature, and I'm going to feel better by putting the marriage and all the responsibilities of that down, because I really feel like I can barely handle all this other shit that I got to handle every day. And quite honestly, I don't give a fuck if you're upset about it, because you piss me off anyway, whatever she's telling herself. And as men, it's hard for us because we still want to get that wifely energy. We want to get that connection and that love, really not understanding all that she's going through in her life. And then when we do plug in with her, what do we always try to do? Oh, well, that's easy to fix. Let me belittle your problems and tell you how to make them easier, and tell you how to fix them all. Never works. So my wife's the same way. She hasn't worn her wedding bands since before Christmas. It's been a very painful thing for me, and I've wondered a lot of things too. I think the challenge for any man is when you realize that, or you feel like you're disposable or you're a burden to somebody, that as a man, you believe that you spend the majority of your time trying to position yourself as a relief, a comfort, a place of safety, place of love and connection that should enliven her and enlighten her and be her release. And when she takes these kinds of actions, very clearly says, not only are you not all those things that you think you are a weight and a burden that's easily disposed of. That just sucks for me.
Yeah, that does suck a lot. That's actually horrendous, right? And if we had more time, I would ask some self-disclosing questions like, you know, I'll speak about myself. I had no idea how to cultivate the art of love, the art of relationship, openness, safety, even necessarily. I had no idea how to help my partner feel like I was a place for a respite and to feel enlivened again. And so when men come to this work, including me many years ago, I had no idea how to do those skills. And so expecting her to want to come to me when I'm not good at those things, that's a catch-22 that men find themselves in. So you have to do the internal work first, the skills work, and then that third phase. With that said, if I may ask, where are the two of you now, Andy? I haven't asked you that for some months now. Your relationship, your connection. She's still living in the house?
Yeah, she is. We've got a couple of more activities to go in a couple of weeks, but I'll give her an opportunity to decide on separation or not within the next. Paperwork's being done right now.
Where are you? What do you want? And if I may, I know we only have so much time. The man in this question is asking about a boundary, like her wearing a ring is a boundary for him, as if this man's trying to get her to put the ring on. And many of us know, and you and I know, that boundaries are for us. They're not to impose control on someone else. So certainly.
No, I don't have any kind of agenda to go to her and say, because you've done X, Y, and Z, and because I know A, B, and C about you, you've lost me, nanny boo boo. I'm leaving. I think it does go back to the skills that I would need to relieve you of the burdens that you feel, to guide you out of the darkness that you found yourself in. I don't have. And despite the tenure that I have in trying to get you there, I've failed at it. So the other side of the coin is that no man has to continue to submit himself to the promiscuity, the infidelity. When a woman feels this way about a man, she starts to pursue other things to relieve that pain. And some of those things are pretty, like, pictures online and looking up stuff. And she's under the impression that all those activities are in the dark, and they're not. So she doesn't know that I know a lot of the things about what she's doing. I don't have any judgment on this. Anybody that's in pain is going to pursue relief from that pain in whatever way they feel like it. But it has gotten infinitely worse. And at the end of it, I do not have the skills necessary to guide her out of it. And that's a limitation. But I will relieve myself of having to continue to participate or even submit myself to the kind of treatments and activities that are going on. So the most recent update is my daughter, my 17-year-old, soon to be 18-year-old daughter, came to me and said, are you aware of the things that mom has going on her phone? Time to take action. Your boundaries have to be you have to take action. You can't just talk and expect.
That's right.
Right. So now that I know, that I not only know, but I have not taken action. And if I haven't taken action, then that could be perceived as condoning it.
Yeah.
And when my 17-year-old daughter comes to me and says, do you know what the fuck's going on? I say, okay, yes, sweetheart, I do, and I'm taking action. I'm taking action. I'm not talking about it. I'm not threatening. I'm not time to take action. Because as a man too, you time to take action. Time to take action. Because as a man too, you also have the responsibility to serve. Your boundaries have to be you have to take action. You can't just talk and expect.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Yeah. So now that I know that I not only know, but I have not taken action. And if I haven't taken action, then that could be perceived as condoning it.
Yeah.
And when my 17-year-old daughter comes to me and says, "Do you know what the fuck's going on?" I say, "Okay, yes, sweetheart, I do, and I'm taking action." And I'm taking action. I'm not talking about it. I'm not threatening. I'm not going to have a lot of conversations. We're going to talk about this when we're at home, and I'm going to move out of the bedroom and move into the other bedroom until you come pining after me. That's not going to fucking work.
Right.
She'll call your bluff on that shit every time. I'm just going to say, "Hey, if you're giving," Sven said this recently, I loved it. If you're giving wifely energy to another man, I feel like I have the right to not offer my husbandly energy. I just have to decide how I show that husbandly. And most men show that husbandly energy by doing everything that we've discussed in this. We are present. We don't retreat. We don't abdicate our masculinity. We decide whether we are going to listen, whether we're going to try to fix. We play those roles and we provide. And I've got a very clear list of how I show my husbandly activities. I have to.
Yeah. And thank you. That's incredibly well said. And briefly, for any man watching this that, might have a knee-jerk reaction of wanting to pull everything back. I've been doing this work for years. When men ask me these kind of questions, I say to have a plan, let's say over 6 months or a year, to slowly step back the husbandly activities, the husbandly connections or duties, so to speak, to slowly start separating the finances potentially. These are all things done like slow and steady wins the race, not a knee jerk, well, screw her, I'm going to do this. So any man that's watching this or that's on here, never make a decision in an evening, never make a decision in anger. This is something you want to bring to the men, you want to journal about or pray about. If that's something that you do, ask questions, fantastic stuff. I just wanted to say that. So with that said, and this is going to need to be our last thing for this call, when he owned up, so again, his wife is where she is. He's told the story. When he owned up with, right now, I don't have the skills to help you feel safe. What does that feel like in your femininity, like in your respect for him, say? Not that she's going to do anything because of that necessarily, his wife. From a professional point of view, what does that feel like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling my heart as you were sharing just the pain of this, and especially what you're saying about men wanting to be the relief and the safe place, and their woman ardently saying, "No, you're not that." When you said, "Hey, I in this moment, I don't have the skills for that," my whole energy is dropped into a feeling of groundedness, and like there was a solid foundation holding me up, and that tells me that I felt very just trusting and in respect and safe with your energy. It probably wouldn't even matter the words you were saying. It just your energy was very pulling, and that kind of a stillness for me of like, this is tall and this is big and this is rooted and this is wise.
Not trying to manipulate, not trying to cajole in any way.
Not trying to dig or...
Right. And so that's how you uphold a boundary. It's with action as a redwood tree over time. Appreciate you guys. Thanks. Good stuff.
Thanks.
That's all the time we have for today. We will see you next week, the same time, with Cynthia and myself. Appreciate you guys. See you on the forums. Reach out to us if you like. See you there. Ciao, guys.